Today, Diversity to Strength, I'm joined by Beth Chamberlin. Beth is an Emmy-nominated actress turned health and fitness coach who has spent the last 15 years helping women navigate midlife, perimenopause, and major life transitions. After stepping away from acting, she built a fitness studio and developed a practical system focused on rebuilding the body, rewiring the mind, and breaking out of survival mode living. At 62, Beth's work became deeply personal when she detected and survived endometrial cancer, an experience that sharpened her message around self-advocacy, health awareness, and the cost of disengaging from our own lives. In this conversation, Beth speaks honestly about aging, identity, illness, and why so many people are escaping rather than truly living. We explore resilience, midlife reinvention, and what it actually takes to reclaim strength and agency at any stage of life. Beth, it's an absolute honor to have you on the podcast. Thanks for taking the time out today.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it so much. I've been looking forward to you coming on for quite a while because it's been booked there for some time.
Yeah.
Take us back to the beginning. Where did your journey start? It's been so eventful.
Well, listen, when I look at the name of your podcast, Adversity to Strength, I always tell people any adversity that you've gone through, as tough as you may look at that, that is the most valuable thing that you have in your toolkit in life. I actually was born with a birth defect in my urinary tract. So I spent the first 6 years of my life in and out of hospitals, continuous being catheterized, IVs, surgeries. And finally at 6, there was a surgery that worked. And it seemed like, wow, this is good. And then soon after that, I started having seizures. Turned out I had epilepsy. Tried medicine after medicine, didn't work. They finally found one that worked. So then okay, right? But through all of this, I want to say, I just wanted to be like everybody else, and I wasn't. And what I was developing in my head is, I'm not good enough. And we all have our I'm not good enough story. And usually it's put there when we're children and when we can't see the big picture. All I knew was I had to go through all of this pain because I wasn't like everybody else. And actually, but the moment that I'm so thankful for was, and this is why I say adversity is the biggest gift that we can have. I was only 6 years old. Because I was in the hospital so much, I couldn't go to my dance classes with my friends. We get to the recital, I look up and I see my friends are doing the most amazing, it was called Glowworm, this number. And I said to my mother, I said, why aren't I in that one? And she said, because you can't do the things that those girls can do. Because I hadn't been to many classes because I was in the hospital all the time. And I remember saying to myself so clearly at that moment, I looked up at that stage and I said, this will never happen to me again. I was 6 years old at the time.
It's impressive.
So that was like a moment of grit for me. Now, unfortunately, my story continued a little bit because they had to give me tetracycline when I was a child. I had to be on medication all the time, and the bacteria would build up resistance, so they have to change. So they didn't have a choice. When we give tetracycline to a child, it discolors their baby teeth to a gray color, as well as their permanent teeth that they will get later. It's not something that can be bleached out. It's the root of the tooth. So I had that, which I knew, but it doesn't really hit you until you're a teenager. You hit puberty and suddenly you become aware, I have great teeth. I'm different again. And, some painful moments around that, including, my boyfriend at one point telling me that his friends would say to him, how can you go out with her? Don't her teeth bother you? So, really painful, really, I'm not good enough stuff. But having that, I'm not good enough. We all have our version of that. And we do have to learn how to deal with it in our heads. But I think it's helpful overall to know that, number one, because strangely, whatever caused that is what's made you who you are today, is what's made you tough. It's what made you able to be somebody that can get through whatever life is throwing at you in the future. And to learn to be thankful for that instead of wishing you didn't have it. Learn to see who it's made you on the inside.
It's not easy.
And it's not easy. It's not easy. But I do think it's helpful for every person to remember that you're not alone with your I'm not good enough story. Every single person on the planet has it. So you're not alone in that. Look around, everybody has it. And to learn to say, hey, what did I get from it though? Is there something that I got from it? And I think that has enabled me. It enabled me to be an actor. When I got out and became an actor, there's tons of rejection as an actor. You have
How
to
did you
have.
find that? Because so you've missed out on someone at 6, but you had that's a lot of
But I
strength.
continued. Well, what I always say is when I
Yeah.
said to myself that at that moment when I said, this will never happen to me again, that very summer, well, dance classes were not in session. When my friends were out playing on the playground, I was practicing in my living room every day. So when I got back to dance classes in the fall, and now remember, I finally had the surgery that had worked, so I could go to the classes. When I finally got back there, I wasn't the worst anymore. I was the best. It was a big, moment for me. Spend more time than the next person.
Yes.
And so that became something in my life to work harder, to work extra. And that really set my life up. And I honestly believe as later when I realized, okay, I want to pursue acting. And let me just preface this by saying, anybody out there who has something that they want to do, they have something in their head that they want to do, but they're afraid. Yes, you're afraid. I was terrified. Every new thing I have ever done in my life, whether it's being an actor, whether it's opening my fitness business, whether it is working with healthcare workers that I work with now, every single thing of importance I've done in my life, I've been terrified to start. I always remember there's a famous thing that I read about Martin Scorsese, who he said every time he opens a script, when he first looks at the script, he says to himself, who are you? You can't do this. You don't know how to direct a film. So just know that fear, that's just what you have to get through to get to the other side. But just the starting is the biggest thing. So get yourself to move through that fear. I like to remember Clement Stone, if anybody knows has heard of that name. Now, he was a self-made billionaire before most of us were even born. So that's how long ago. But he had been a salesman and he was terrified to knock on doors. That's back when he did door-to-door sales. But what he discovered was action negates fear. And any performer can tell you this is true. When you're standing backstage waiting to go on, you're filled with nerves. But once you get out there, you're okay. And so that's what he discovered. Yeah. So he started to say to himself all the time, do it now, do it now, do it now, So he would force himself to take action. So that's kind of been a theme in my life too, is that every new thing I've wanted to do, I've said, hey, you got to get through the fear. You got to walk through that fear. You got to get to the other side of this. So that is allowed me to pursue acting, which was a dream. And I'll even say that it was a few years of sitting in pain, in fear, having a life I was totally not happy with before I made myself make those initial moves to start on that road to becoming an actor, which gave me an incredibly fulfilling career and that I still work in today. But I had to get through that step. And then,
how did you get through that step?
Well, I kept going back and forth. I was afraid to go to a class, right? I was afraid to start as an actor. I'd done some acting, but I was afraid to really, because I was afraid I would find out I couldn't do it, right? And then one day, somebody I knew, there was a bunch of us sitting around saying we were actors. And he said, you people are all full of it. I said, you're not actors. You're not doing anything about it. You're just saying you are. And I thought, oh, that's me. And that painful moment made me take action, because that pain of seeing myself, of who I was a phony. I was saying I was an actor, I wasn't doing anything about it. That painful moment of when he called me on it, that was more painful. That suddenly became more painful than taking the step to get into that first acting class, which led to another one, which led to another. Now, and along the way, there were lots of people telling me, I wasn't good at first. I had to learn how to be good. And there was a lot of learning with that. But I kept going. I always say, whatever you're starting, it's like if you see a locomotive train starting, right? When it first starts, there's so much energy that has to go into it, right? And then it starts moving, and then it's harder to stop than it is to keep it going.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with anything you want to do. In the beginning, it might feel like this, whatever you're doing might feel like that, but stay with it. And then you're going to start to be hard to stop after a point. And that is truly what happened with me. But now going back to my I'm not good enough story, I kept getting better as an actor, but there was a little voice in my head that kept coming up going, who do you think you are? You're not really good enough to get this. That was holding me back. And I had to contend with that voice in my head. And I did. But I didn't understand at the time how to really fully contend with it. So I was doing a lot of mind work up here, and I got on Guiding Light, the CBS soap opera Guiding Light. I got on that, and then and I was flying high, doing really well, and then I started to go through a really troubled time. That part of it had to do with a very dysfunctional relationship I had with a boyfriend, and so I started really struggling, and I went right back to my I'm not good enough patterns and started sabotaging myself in my job.
Yeah.
And ultimately ended up leaving the show.
That was after like 15 years.
I'd only been on for 2 years at that point. I was only on for 2 years at that point. I left the show. And I always tell people this: be careful who you're hanging out with. Be careful of your community. Because now before that show, I had worked done tons of commercials, had worked before that show. I hadn't been under contract with something, but I had worked a lot. After I left that show, I moved back to Los Angeles. I fell in with a group of actors who always talked about how hard it was. Casting directors didn't know what they were looking at, just a real negative group. And I didn't realize at the time, but I was absorbing that. I was absorbing that atmosphere of those people. And guess what? I didn't work for about 2.5 years, not a single job during that time. Now, thankfully, I met my husband during that time, and my husband and I moved back to New York. My husband supported me. He just believed in me. And when I moved back to New York, I wasn't hanging out with those same friends anymore. In fact, I was developing a new friendship with a woman that I'd known, but we hadn't been friends before. Yeah. So I will tell you, I moved back to New York, stopped hanging out with those people, and had a husband that supported me. I went from making $0 to about $100,000 in 8 months from booking commercials.
What a difference. What was the difference? What was the change?
The people I was hanging out with, what I was absorbing.
Productive environment.
Right? And beyond that, so I was developing this relationship with this woman friend. We lived about 3 hours from one another. So about once a month, we decided we were going to create a kind of our own mastermind group. We were going to support one another. I had a career goal. She had a goal that was more of a personal nature. And what was great about that, and what I sort of encourage people, if you can create your own mastermind with somebody to overcome your own adversity, have someone that doesn't have the same goal you do. A lot of times, like if I had that mastermind with another actor, we will have the same limiting beliefs, very similar limiting beliefs. And in our case, she and I had different goals. We had different limiting beliefs. I didn't have limiting beliefs around relationships. She didn't have it around career. So during this time, we're meeting one another, is very supportive. And one day I'm meditating, and I literally hear a voice. I thought somebody was in the room with me. It was the weirdest thing, that said, send your reel, which is, your actor.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Paul Rausch, who is now the new executive producer of Guiding Light. And I heard that and thought, well, no, I can't do that. That's not the way things are done. I can't do that. I don't know what, I'm not doing that.
Sending a reel to your old job.
To my old job. Now, I will tell you, I had my agent contact Guiding Light to see about me going back there. My agent contacted the casting director that was over there, and the casting director said to him, no, they're not interested. So here I am getting this thought that sounded more like somebody speaking it to me, saying, send your reel to Paul Rausch. And I thought, well, no, that's not done. You have to go through your agent. It's not done that way. So I ended up on the phone with my friend, and I tell her this, and she said, are you crazy? She said, you send that to him by the next time we meet, or I'm going to be really disappointed in you. So I was meeting with her in just a couple of weeks. And once again, the idea of sitting across the table from her at lunch and telling her I never sent it to him, having her look at me with disappointment, was more painful to me than taking this chance and sending this in. Yeah. Well, guess what? By the time I met with her in 2 weeks, I had a contract to go back to guiding.
What happened? How come they come back with this contract? What happened there? Because that's
Well,
like,
then I sent it in to him. He looked, the executive producer didn't really know me. He saw, work that I'd done on the show.
right.
I went and met with him. I mean, he contacted my agent very quickly, went and met with him, and it was the perfect timing for me to go back, and ended up being just that time on the show. Then I was on the show for, 13 years or whatever after that. And it was just an incredible ride. I was so fortunate with how they wrote my character. But that, that also more adversity. This is life. Life is like this, right?
As
And
always.
you have to just know that other, the other upswing is coming around, but how can we help that upswing come around?
Yeah.
Right? So I got back to the show. It was an incredibly successful storyline that I got to be a part of with an executive producer. He was such a wonderful executive producer. I was so proud of every show I was on with him. We had these amazing, amazing writers at the time. So I just had this amazing storyline. Well, now we're going to fast forward again.
Sure.
I'm on the show, and now it's, so I've been on the show about 6 years. I've had all this great stuff going on. Paul Roush has left the show. A new executive producer comes into the show. And I'm about this time, no, so it was longer than this. It was about 8 years, I guess. New executive producer comes on because I'm about 41 now. New executive producer comes on. I have a new contract coming up. Executive producer calls my agent and says, yeah, I don't see using her too much anymore. We're not going to give her another contract. She's getting old.
At 41.
41. I was like, what?
At 41.
So they take me off contract, they take my dressing room away from me. Now, as a leading lady, they take your dressing room away. That's a big message. That's telling you you're not part of the club anymore.
Okay.
You're not important anymore. You don't even have a place to stay, right? So that was, whoa, and my confidence cratered. I will tell you, my confidence cratered. And, but I was fortunate because about this time, I went on a vacation with my husband and two good friends to a little remote cabin up in Vermont. My husband and the two friends exercised all the time. I never did. I never exercised, but I did this year because normally when I went on that vacation, I gained 10 pounds. Well, I knew, I was like, you can't gain 10 pounds now. That's just giving them one more reason, because they were still writing me in a little bit like an old granny is how they were writing me. So I would come in for, so I thought, well, you can't gain any weight. That's just going to give them another reason not to write you in. And I needed them to write me in because that was my income. I needed that. I needed to have money. So I started exercising with my friends and my husband on that vacation. I always tell people that week changed my life, because I think if I hadn't had that week today, I would be an overweight, unhealthy, possibly an alcoholic. And the reason is because I was drowning that cratering confidence in unhealthy habits. Yeah. I started on a different path that week. Soon after that, I started doing that. So I started feeling better, right? So, but I did that for, another 8 months or so. And then the big change really came, though. I picked up a kettlebell for the first time. Now, I'll tell you that first time I saw a kettlebell, my husband went, now this is way back. Remember, this is like 20 years ago, right? You couldn't buy a kettlebell. You had to order them. Yeah. And my husband was interested in them. And I thought, give me a break, right? But my husband changed his body in 6 weeks using this. And so I asked him, I said, well, what size kettlebell should I get? Well, I started training with this. And as I always tell people, and this is why I'm such a big believer, especially for women, but for men too, get strong. Get your body strong. Guess what? Whatever your goal is. Yeah. It can be a career goal. It can be a money goal. It can be a relationship goal. Whatever your goal is, get your body strong. That's going to take you halfway to your goal. Okay. It will take you after. Let me explain that. That getting strong didn't just change my body. It did change my body, but it changed who I was on the inside. Right. Yeah. Number one, working out. I was working out with this kettlebell. I was lifting weight. It was teaching me that if I did tough things here, I could handle tough things on the outside. It was increasing my sense of self-worth. Right. Well, guess what? About 4 months after I started training with that kettlebell, that dressing room they took away from me, I went to the producer and I said, you give me a dressing room. And not just for me, for 3 other women who'd been given the boot too. Right. And I got it. How did you get it? I was a different person. Before, I was a person that was did. I was undeniable now, right?
What's the difference? Because you've walked in there, but the producers go, "Well, I'm sorry, we've made our decision."
I was undeniable. I
Right.
would not, I went in there with complete confidence. No, this is happening.
Yeah.
But because I'm telling you, if you have done tough things in the gym, or if you're working out at home, if you've done tough things with weight, there's something very empowering about working
Yeah.
with weight, right? You do tough things there, it expands your belief in
It
what
gives
you can
confidence. You get in
do
shape.
out in other areas of your life.
Yeah. Definitely.
And the other reason is if I went in there, and this is who I was before, I was looking for outside validation, their validation that they were going to write me back in or whatever. I wasn't looking for it anymore because I had my own validation in here. And so when you have that, when you walk in the situation, you're a different person. But I always tell people too, this is the other thing. This is why I'm going to tell you, start working out, get strong. It will take you halfway to your dream. And one of the reasons is, it's going to change you psychologically, your sense of self-worth. But one thing I know as an actor, and this has been proven in psychology as well, motion creates emotion, right? So before I started strength training, I had lost my core over time, right? And even in 40, I didn't have a strong core. Even though I was running, that didn't help my core. That didn't help my upper body, right? So I had lost my posture. This kind of body language is a defeated body language. That sends a message to your mind who you are. But now, like I sit up straight all the time. I walk straight all the time. I don't think about it. It's because I have a strong core. I have muscles that's just how I stand. That's just how I sit. This is power, you know? So we are sending messages. You know, I always say to people, what's the message you're sending hour after hour, day after day, from your body to mind? And what are you sending to people out there? Now, the M part of this story is, I got that dressing. Now, about 6 months after I've started this strength training, I look at the schedule. I'm in every day. My character is working every day. What's going on?
Yeah.
I open the script. My character's in bed with a 20-year-old. I went from, they were writing me as a granny. Now I'm a cougar. I was like, what? And I got an Emmy nomination for that story. So, you know, this work on this you have to work on too, right? You do have to work on this too. But I always say, if you start here,
I agree.
Way, all right.
Yeah.
And then what I try to tell people too is, now, how do we work on this? There's something called negativity bias. Every one of us has. Right? Because it is what allowed our ancestors to survive. 200,000 years ago, when we lived on the savannah, you had to notice what was wrong around you because what was wrong could kill you. You didn't have to notice what was right, but you did have to notice what was wrong. So every single one of us has negativity bias. We are continuously scanning for what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong. And it's survival. So I call that my inner caveman, right? So your inner caveman is going to be continuously looking for what's wrong to help you survive. That was fine for survival. It was fine for living in a hole 200,000 years ago. It's not so great for living a successful life now, because as soon as you start to think of something you want to do, that negativity bias is going to go, but this is why it won't work. But this is why. And you have to go, thank you. I call this ARC, right? Something that I call ARC. Stands for acknowledge what that inner voice is trying to do. Say, okay, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to protect me. I see that. And then you've got to reframe, right? I see what you're trying to do. Now you've got to refocus on on where you want to go, right? Not what he's saying, where you want to go. And you have to, and the C stands for custody. Who has custody right now? That inner voice that's trying to keep you right where you are, or that vision where you want to go, right? Who are you going to decide has custody right now? Because only one of those can have custody. And it's just like, and I just go, it's just like parents deciding on custody. And what I do when that comes up, I literally go, hey, you don't have custody right now. I will come back and we will discuss this in 2 weeks. This is the date we'll discuss it on. But I have, the other guy has custody right now. The vision of where I want to go has custody right now. So, and then, as you know, as you mentioned, another example of this is my recent diagnosis. So that was in October, and I was diagnosed with endometrial cancer. And I always tell people, you know, my very first reaction to that was, I think you've made a mistake. Those can't be my test results. What are you talking about?
Didn't you sense something was wrong before, though?
My symptoms were so incredibly slight that I can't even believe that I followed up on it. Except the only thing that I will tell you is that there was an inner knowing that said, I think you do have to go in and see somebody about this.
Right.
You've kind of got to, Beth. But they were so slight. It wasn't what, and I like to say this to women. Oftentimes women will be told, you know, if post-menopause you have bleeding or spotting or these, that, you know, or cramping, these pains, or that, you know, you go and see, this could be a sign of it. I didn't have that. So it was just a very slight, like I started to notice, wait a minute, in my first morning pee of the day, I would notice that there was like something where there was like a tiny piece of like slightly pink colored tissue or something, but just very first in the morning, then there was nothing else. So it was so slight that I definitely could have let that go. But I got it checked up on, and turned out it was early stage. Very fortunate with that. Because I say that because it was caught so early. The surgery, I had to have a total hysterectomy. The surgery was curative, right? So I didn't have to have chemo. I didn't have to have radiation because it was caught so early. You know, going back to that, that initial diagnosis, I mean, one of the things I thought to myself was, well, this cancer doesn't know who it's dealing with, you know, because I have built up over time history of who I am, right? I'm somebody that, okay, I'm going to handle this, you know, and also part of that does have to do with that strong body. Have that strong body. It's going to convince you can handle tough things.
Yeah. Some people that I've met, interviewed so many people, and there's some people that's got that natural never say die, no matter what, they're going to keep on going. But a lot of people don't have that. And some people have to work really hard to get that mindset, to really build that consistency and never sort of go back to where they were there as well. Do you think that was more your case, that you had to work really hard to get that almost unbreakable mindset?
Well, listen, I do think obviously I built up grit as from what I had to handle as a child. So I did have some base of that, sure. But I think, like many people, I used to be someone that when faced with adversity, now these are real stats I'm going to give you, right?
Yeah.
So when faced with adversity, even in something, a crisis like a plane crash, 10% of people will get hysterical. 80% of people will become paralyzed, bewildered, confused. Only 10% of people will act decisively. So I remember one day, I just read that stat, and one day I'm in the makeup room, actually. There's a bunch of people in there, makeup artists, people getting their makeup done, other people waiting to get their makeup done. It was a big room. And the young woman that played my daughter on the show suddenly falls to the floor screaming. Everyone in that room froze, including me. But I remembered the statistic, and I said, I'm not going to be in, I'm not going to be 80%. I'm going to be in the 10%. And I jumped up and started helping her. Now, what happened after that, though, what's interesting is not right away, but once I had moved, other people came out of their bewilderment, paralysis too. What I tell people is, if you're having to make this move, right? If you're having to force yourself, as I did, to be in that 10% that makes a decisive move, if you're having to be that person, it's not just for you, it's for everybody around you. You are going to get, even without knowing it, you're going to help your children, your friends, you're going to help them also be more proactive. So if you can think of it that way, try to think of yourself, I'm going to be in that 10%.
It's a good mindset to have. It's a great mindset to have, because it helps you push through the normal responses where people freeze, that kind of thing, and it spurs you on, inspires you, and yourself, like you said about like with the train, it gives you that momentum there as well, and then things become easier for you there as well. Where did that take you? Because you're doing acting, so you've really overcome a lot there as well, and then it's almost like, how fickle like TV is, and movies and that is, you're on the verge of being written out. They've taken your dressing room away there. You've come back almost a new you in amazing shape. And then it's like they've gone from one extreme to the other. You're being written in every single day. And then again, Actually, we're going to get you with a 20-year-old there as well. So
Yeah.
you're doing like a mate, which is a great story, which is brilliant. And you get an Emmy there as well. So at the time, did you think, well, this is just great, I'm just going to keep going with this? Or because obviously you've done so much, which obviously we come to since, did you think I'm just going to keep doing this, or maybe there's
Well,
more out there that I want to do?
what did happen was, even during that time, so the show ended up being canceled a couple of years after that, all of that. But even during that time, I had such a dramatic change in my life that I put out 2 DVDs with kettlebell training, because I was really like, this is the answer. This is amazing. I want other women to feel as empowered as I. So that I didn't realize it at the time, but was setting me up for something that I would do after the show was canceled, which was I ultimately ended up opening my own fitness studio. It's called Camp. I ended up opening that because I did have such a passion for helping other women. And like I always say, it's like, yeah, it's great to, feel good about how your body looks, but the real gold that you get is how you feel inside.
Always.
It just changes, who you are. It changes your confidence level. It just empowers you so much. So I really wanted that for people. And so now I've had that business for 14 years now. And then we go to the next, which is just this last spring, we were running a challenge at the gym. And I was really sharing not only obviously the fitness stuff that we do, but diet, supplementation, mindset, was sharing a lot of things. And especially my female clients were just coming in so happy. And it suddenly occurred to me, I thought, I think I need to share this in a wider audience here. I had never been much into social media. I'll be honest. Even as an actor, I was like, "What is that self-aggrandizement? I don't get it." I wasn't interested in it. But suddenly, I could see a purpose in the social media, right? Because I had information that I had found through years of trial and error. I'm like, oh my gosh, all this stuff, and some of it, of course, is working out strength training, some of it's diet, some of it's supplementation. But beyond that, as I've sort of illustrated to you, there was a lot of stuff up here that had to go on. And in fact, in trying to work on that, there was course after course, there was book after book. There was a year-long program through Stanford's C-CARES program that was taught by the late neurologist James Doty, also a best-selling author. Or I should say, he was in some classes, but he designed the program more so, and that was a year-long program. So I was always doing all of this stuff. So I just realized, wow, I have this stuff that I need to share with people. So it was amazing. I'll say that I just started on Instagram. I didn't even know the difference between a reel and a story or a post.
Yeah, no,
I was
like me.
I had to go on AI and go, how do I do this? Right. I didn't know anything. But so I just started that. I think that was sometime last June. And between June and now, I built like 75,000 followers. Right.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people's going to know you anyway.
With a lot of, but because I feel that, sharing this, there was information that so many people needed, wanted. And my whole goal it wasn't to go, oh, look at me. It was to go, I want to give you this valuable information. I want to give you information that it might not be every post I put is for the specific individual, but I'm literally trying with every post. I'm going, okay, how can I use something that I know to inspire, give somebody information? My whole thing is, obviously, unless you're coming to me personally at my gym, I don't know you. I don't know exactly the shape that you're in or what's your health history or injuries or anything, previous injuries. I don't know any of those things. What I always say to people is my Instagram is about giving you ideas that you can then use to do your own research, giving you some information that so that you can have informed discussions with your healthcare provider, that you can make informed decisions yourself in your life. So that's my whole thing, is to just give out information that hopefully in this wide range of things help people have their best lives. And of course, I'm mostly geared toward women that are 45 plus. And one of the reasons I'm geared toward that is because so often, just like me, women that are 45 plus are often discounted. And what I always say to people is, I go, hey, I'm 62. It took me 62 years to become the woman that I wanted to be when I was 20. Because the only way you get to this person here is living through a lot of tough stuff, living through it, learning from it, all that adversity. Unfortunately, as human beings, for the most part, we don't learn when times are good. We learn when we go through the tough times. I took stand-up comedy for a while, it's such a, and I love it. And I really did it because I was at a point in my life that I said, Beth, you need to shake things up. You're going to do the scariest thing.
Yeah. And that would be that. Oh God.
It was the scariest thing I could think of without causing physical harm to myself. So I signed up, and I'll tell you, my first couple of classes, it was terrible. Because it was shaking. Even though I'm an actor, as an actor, you're playing a character. You don't feel like it's you. Here I am with a microphone. That I was terrified. But I learned so much from it. And I ended up having so much fun with it because I have a lot to draw on, because I've done a lot of stupid shit in my life. So I have a lot of funny stories to tell about, well, I messed up again. But I'll tell you, my teacher, I so appreciated something that she said. My first teacher said, nobody goes home and writes great material after you've just had a killer set and you've had everybody laughing like crazy. When you go home and write great material? When you've bombed. That's when you go home and write great material. That's life, right? That is life. Life is, yes, when you're in the midst of it, doesn't feel so good. But this is one of the things I say. Number one, what's the education in this moment? Is there education in this? Like, as far as, is there something that I can learn from going through this that can help others, that can get me to the next level? Is there, or is the education, am I going back to some kind of pattern that over dramatizing a situation, am I going back to the I'm not good enough? What pattern am I going back to that I need to recognize and release, right? So identify the education with where you're at. And also remember, this is what I always say, if you're going to move to the next grade level, right? In school, you go to the next grade, you gotta have a test before you're able to move that. I believe that's in life too. I believe that sometimes when tough things come along, it is life just preparing you to move to the next level. So my question would be to people, if you're going through it, is identify the education and what you're going through, and then see it. This is just my test, because who do I need to become to move to this next level? Right? This is just life. Maybe it's life giving you a gift so that you can.
A lot of it is how we deal with that. And I remember speaking to a lady, really, really nice lady, American lady, she lost her husband unexpectedly. And she was talking about how she got through it and how she got the perspective. She did a lot of journaling there as well. And it was literally all about changing her mindset. And she was saying that often some of the best opportunities are when we're going through a really bad time. But the mistake that we often make is that we don't see the opportunity, because the opportunity might not be looking for it. It might not be exactly right here, right now. It might be in the future, and we often miss out. So she was explaining how she can be aware to be looking for that potential opportunity, even though when she's been through something tough. And that really stuck with me. So
Yes. I think, obviously that's a tough situation that she went to, one of the toughest that we can be asked to get through. And she was able to identify, even in that very difficult situation, she was able to identify the gift.
I think it's the same for yourself, though. With all the things that you've been through, any circumstances that's coming your way, I think your brain's probably now programmed automatically, right? I'll deal with whatever has come my way that I need to deal with, but what's the lesson? What is it I can gain from this? What can I help me move on with? And that's a great way to be, because with some people, and obviously as a therapist, people come to me and whatever, a lot of people just go, it's another negative, it's another problem. One of the things that I changed in my life, because it's easy to be negative, is I changed the word from problem to obstacle, and the difference in changing that word.
Yeah. a
That's
challenge,
how.
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
I used to
definitely.
run I used to run Spartan races.
Cool. That's brave.
And and so you're getting over walls
Yeah. Good.
sometimes and things.
Fair
And each
play.
one is just called a challenge, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, I'll liken these things that I'm going through to, oh, this is one of those walls that I've just got to get
Yeah.
over. And believe me, I remember I think it was the first Spartan race I ran, there was a huge wall. And I remember standing back, looking at it and thinking, how am I going to get over that? And I just got bold. I just went for it, and my foot hit it the right place. I couldn't even believe I got over it, but I did. And sometimes it is going to require a little boldness, right? To get through that challenge, whatever it may be.
I mean, you've gone through so many challenges there, and you've got so much energy and enthusiasm there. It's like you're the start of something. Not that you're like even though you've been doing certain things for years, but the enthusiasm you got, it feels like you're just getting started. I've sort of climbed
Oh yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, one of the things that I'm doing too, coming up, I'm
Yeah.
doing a few things. I
What's
I'm
next?
in the
What's the
course of
future?
in the course of getting a book together, but with all of these things, but something that I'm doing pretty immediately. It's in May. As I started to do this, I decided I wanted to do a retreat, because remember when I told you I had that week that changed my life? Since that moment, we would go back to that same cabin year after year after that. And I remember probably it was a couple of years after I had made the change. I remember standing out there and looking up at that cabin and thinking, if I could only bring other people here, I could do for them what that 1 week did for me. So ever since that time, I've thought about it, how that I wanted to do something like that. Well, I'm doing it this year, May 17th to the 22nd. And it is really about full transformation. We're going to be working out, teaching some people, won't know how to work out, how to do the moves properly. And that's really important. Form is important. If we're not moving properly, we're not hitting the muscles properly. So we'll be doing that. But we'll also be going on excursions. Like we're going to be hiking to some waterfalls. Now, as we hike to this, some people they'll get there and they'll feel proud because they helped somebody else get there. Some people will get there and they'll feel proud just because they got there. But everybody will get that feeling of, I got to this they're amazing, amazing waterfalls. And then it's clean food, right? So we're putting clean food in our bodies. But then we're also talking about some of the mind work that I've had to learn through all these years. And so to give not only that physical change that happened to me in that 1 week, but also knowing how to deal with the stuff that goes on up here as well. There was a book, and I realize now why that week was so important. There's a book by Benjamin Hardy called Willpower Doesn't Work. And I think many people would agree with that willpower doesn't work.
Yeah. You need more.
And what he found was the number one way that we can achieve successful change is through changing our environment. Right. And that's what happened to me on that week. Right.
Yeah.
I changed my environment because when you do that, he calls it a forcing function. Now, what a forcing function is, it's an event that changes your default behavioral patterns.
Yeah.
So, and that is exactly what happened to me on that week. When I say to people, yeah, that week hadn't happened, I'd be an overweight, unhealthy alcoholic. That week happened, though, just in 1 week. It was a forcing function. It changed my default behavioral pattern. So I've wanted to do that ever since. But I'll tell you why it was really tough to find a place to do this. Number one, that place up in Vermont, surrounded by natural beauty. I was exercising, was having good food. But there's some key elements that very hard to find, right? There was no television. There was no Wi-Fi. No cell coverage, right?
That's a lot of people that would be scared of that.
And this is the reason why that's important.
Definitely.
Because we are spending so much time focusing here and connecting here that we're not connecting here anymore. And, they've done studies that if you start to try to focus on something, maybe it's your life, where you want to go, designing what you want the next year to look like. If you start that and you pick up this, right, and you start to it takes you 20 minutes to get back to where you were. So we're not able to get in that fully focused. So
Yeah.
where we're going in Costa Rica, it's in the middle of a rainforest. Now, people have Wi-Fi in their rooms, so they're not completely disconnected. So you have the Wi-Fi in your rooms, but you're not going to have it everywhere, right? So we have to connect with one another. We have to connect with ourselves,
Yeah.
and to not have that continuous distraction that's
Yeah.
keeping us from really getting here. And the other thing is the same thing in this remote location in Vermont, which is surrounded by mountains, is looking out at a lake. This place in Costa Rica, it's in the middle of a rainforest, looking out at the ocean, waterfall nearby, surrounded by a river. All of this stuff creates these negative ions that I can't remember, it was a Harvard researcher called vitamins in the air, right? All of these things reduce depression, increase dopamine, oxytocin levels, get more blood to the brain so that we can think better. All of these things coming here. And I will tell you, I went on my scouting mission to this place in Costa Rica in October. I always tell people, as soon as I got out of the car, because you fly into San Jose and then like I have private planes that will take you to Emmy-nominated. Once I and then SUVs pick you up, take you to Emmy-nominated. I stepped out of the SUV and it felt like shackles fell off my body right away. It was such a, and I thought, what just, this was, and it's the atmosphere there that was transforming. Now, what's also important about that, 4 days after I got back from there, I was diagnosed with that endometrial cancer just 4 days after I got back from there.
4 days after you come back, you're really relaxed. It's all amazing.
I'm relaxed. But it is key that I was in a good head.
Yes.
And so when I got the diagnosis, yes, I did say, well, that cancer doesn't know who it's dealing with. And I immediately decided that number one, I was going to call this the nuisance. I wasn't going to make it too big. I was also going to identify the education, which was maybe I need to go through this to help the people I want to help. That's what
I'm thinking in this mindset, whereas a lot of people would just almost implode.
Yeah. And that's one way you can go.
Yeah.
That way is, remember that 10% that becomes hysterical?
Yeah.
Nothing good's going to happen over there. And we don't make good decisions when we're in fear, right?
Definitely not.
So I decided that. I said, okay, I got to help. Maybe this is what I need. Maybe I need to go through this experience to help the people that I want to help.
The thing is, it's so easy to be in that 80%. I think it maybe like the 90%.
No, oh, yeah.
But for you to go to any, as soon as you hear the word, you're fearing the worst. I am, even though it's somebody down the road or whatever. You just hear it. You fear the worst. So for you to be able to kind of take it in your stride, and then you're thinking about other people.
But that thinking of other people was really important. Remember what I said? I call this thing arc, when that voice is trying to, so you acknowledge it, say, I know you're trying to help me out here, but you've got to refocus. So instead of focusing on that, all that fear stuff, what I had in my head was being there, that I would be in May and helping the people that I was going to be helping. And that filled me with so much joy and hope that every time I started to go into fear, I went, let's go over here. This is what's got custody right now. And that's what I did. And I have to tell you, it was, I mean, were there difficult times as I went through? Yeah. And in fact, the day before my surgery, I was a mess. But part of the reason I was a mess is because it was taking me right back to my childhood, all those childhood surgeries, all that was, and I didn't even realize it at the time. It was like, I'm going right back to that. And, it was this, that came up for me, but I had to go through it. Right. And so I went through it, but that was kind of a small piece of it. Through the rest of it, I was really using that. We're not going toward the fear. We're going toward just this vision that I had of being there, helping people. And like I said, that filled me with so much joy, because this is what I say, why it fills me with so much joy is I have had a lot of pain in my life. I've had a lot of times where I felt less than, I felt not good enough, or my confidence had cratered. And because I've felt it, honestly, if I can help anyone get out of that or get beyond it or think in a different way, I want to do it. So that is really just a huge motivating force for me now.
I think that anyone that knows you, that's listened to you, you're going to have a lot of fans that would have followed you throughout your career and things like that. Just to hear what you're saying is going to inspire a lot of people. One, just listening to your story, without doubt, I've read about it and then hearing about it firsthand. It is so motivational, so genuinely inspiring the way you overcome things and the way you deal with it there as well. But also the support and advice that you give other people there as well. It's going to help countless people more than you're ever going to know.
Yes, I hope so. I hope so.
Without doubt, that's kind of guaranteed there as well. So being a therapist is helpful because you sort of hear stories of how they see something or heard something and it's a throwaway comment and it's been life changing, but that person that's done that is never going to hear about it.
Yes, yeah.
So Beth, it's just been an absolute pleasure and so motivation and inspiring to have you on the podcast. I've loved every second of it, and it's just been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.